Our final session for the keynotes this morning, I think, is going to generate a little bit of controversy here. We have a pretty interesting topic for you, one that has been a very hot button issue in the news recently. It has also been an issue of the highest priority in national governments, and an issue that concerns everyone in the telecommunications industry because it's their infrastructure and it's their services and it's their customers that are being affected by all of this. We're going to talk about cybersecurity. We're going to talk about it at the state level, and we're going to talk about it somewhat politically. We're going to talk about it somewhat controversially. But we have two very brilliant experts here who have been working in this area for quite some time and are working hard to bring about some solutions to some very tense situations that have evolved in our world today. So first of all, I would like to welcome Professor Tang Lan, who is the Deputy Director of the Institute of Information and Social Development Studies at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations in Beijing. Professor Tang, thanks for joining us, coming from Beijing today. And also on my far left, your right, is Professor Tsuchiya, and I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly. Yes. Professor Tsuchiya is with the Keynote University in Tokyo and is currently a visiting scholar. I was trying to get the right words there. I keep thinking research fellow, all that. Visiting scholar at the East-West Center that's based here, right here in Honolulu. So thank you both for coming. The situation in the world today sees us with a very, very tense relationship, and that relationship between China and the U.S. has been amplified recently, and other countries joining in that, including Japan. Let's just dive right into this. Dr. Tang, Professor Tang, can you tell us, there are a lot of different approaches to cybersecurity in the world today, and we often don't understand each other, and that's part of the tensions. From China's perspective, what is their approach to cybersecurity, and what motivates them in this domain?
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you to give me the opportunity to join this distinguished panel. And as just Mr. Mark said, that the cyber issue, that cybersecurity is hot topic in China. You know that just like the other countries, China has viewed the cyberspace as a strategic domain. So, and you know that in the first of year, President Xi has to make a commitment that the cybersecurity is one of the most concern of the country, and they have to make some perspective that the cybersecurity is the most concern in the government, and they have said no the cybersecurity, there's no national security, there's no informationization, there was no modernization. So you say that the Chinese government have to put the cybersecurity issue into the more top level. So until now, they have to do some change in the policy or in the structure to combat this threat. I think that the last panel have to invite some official from the new department to in charge of all the cybersecurity issue. So as I know that there is some cyberspace administration of China. They have to play a coordinate role in all of the police issue.
So that coordination is actually just starting on a more coordinated way, if that's the way to put it, right?
At the beginning of this year.
Yeah, at the beginning of this year.
They have to plan to play a more important role in that.
What do you feel is that outsiders most misunderstand about China's approach to cybersecurity?
I think that two questions that I met for this discussion. So outside of China also said that the Chinese government has to do some field in the internet. That may be to control the content or to to isolate the freedom of the free speech. And another side, they have to say that China has the capability to offend other people or to launch the cyber attack to other countries. But I think that is not so true.
The approach on the other side, Professor Tsuchiya, you understand the U.S. position quite well because of your activities, and you also understand, obviously, the Japanese situation with regard to that. How is that different from what we just heard?
Yeah, United States and Japan are dependent on information technology in everyday life, so we are quite vulnerable against cyber attacks. And so in Japan's case, the Japanese government is getting 5 million cyber attacks in 2013. So the number is increasing, and the private sector is getting more. So one of the worst case for us was Mitsubishi Heavy Industry. It's the biggest military contractor in Japan. And it means that Mitsubishi might lose American high technology information. So it's hard alliance between the United States and Japan. So it should be a very political, military, and diplomatic issue for us. So we are trying to stepping up our preparedness of cybersecurity. And so last year, everybody knows that Sony Pictures were attacked. So Sony is a Japanese company, but Sony Pictures is an American company. But we are worrying about that. So we felt that Japan was also attacked. So it should be becoming alliance issue for United States and Japan.
Where do you think the fault lies in this relationship? Obviously, we had an experience recently, and I'll say it outright, where the U.S. Department of Justice did an action that ended up resulting in 8 Chinese nationals, I believe, being arrested, and that isn't the end of it, right? Accusing each other of spying and espionage and cyber attacks and back and forth, that kind of tit for tat seems to be escalating. From your particular view, from both of your particular view in seeing attacks in your own country as well as the accusations of attacks from your countries going out to the rest of the world, how much of it is true?
I think it depends on the specialist of the cyber space and in the particularity of the information technology. I think that it's hard to define definitely to say who is behind attack. You know that when we talk about the code of conduct or some of the rules of in the cyberspace, that is the first question is how to resolve the problem of attribution. I think that it's hard to find a real attacker. So we should have to cooperate together to find who is the real guy.
A little bit. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, in June 2013, so President Obama and President Xi Jinping met in California, and they discussed cyber issues, but they couldn't agree. So we were disappointed why they couldn't agree. But I have a question to you actually. So why President Xi Jinping couldn't control cyber attacks? That's my question. So as far as I know, there are many cyber actors in China too. So for example, patriotic hackers and in private sectors, and corporate hackers. They want some confidential information, technology information from other companies in China or in other foreign countries. And people say PLA, People's Liberation Army, is working, and maybe intelligence agencies too. I want to know how President Xi can control them. So outside China, people tend to say, so Communist Party is controlling everything. They are doing censorship in China. So they can control everything in China. But so how President Xi Jinping can control Chinese hackers?
I think it's
I think that was a good question.
almost Mr. Obama, he can say that he controlled the internet. I think nobody can say that he can control the internet. I think this is the truth. You know that Mr. Xi has the presidency had to make most of the priorities in this year to push the securities to improve the securities conditions inside China. One of the priorities is to improve or to some kind of the laws to combat that kind of the hack. I know that it's popular in every country that hack is used their technology to attack somebody or to release their opinion to oppose the government. But I can say that in China, the cyber attack or the cyber crime is illegal, and they have some kind of the law to prohibit that kind of the action, I think. You know that it's not so fast to find to see the impact or to result, but I think that I pushed to make some improvement to do that. I think.
Question back to you then, Professor Tsuchiya. Is Japan equally guilty?
Yeah. So Edward Snowden was in Hawaii. So NSA has a big facilities here. So and U.S. government is tapping other countries. But in international legal space, it's a gray area. It's not illegal apparently. So U.S. is doing for its own national security, and Japan wants to do that, but our constitution doesn't allow any wiretapping inside Japan, outside Japan, and our constitution doesn't allow our military forces deploy outside Japan. So our capability is very limited, but we have to defend ourselves. That's our highest task. Now, 2 years ago, we published a cybersecurity strategy, and we passed a cybersecurity basic law last year. Mm-hmm. So we want to strengthen ourselves, and we want to make a good alliance with US and other countries. We do not say contain China, Russia, North Korea, but we have to defend our cyberspace too. So we should be a better arrangement for cybersecurity.
I just think about example for this kind of cooperation. You know that the Chinese have the CN They have found some attack come from US, and their target is US. So it's sometimes they can difficult to find who is the real attack. They have to cooperate to clarify to find evidence to prove that. So I think that the US CERT and the CN CERT also have the good cooperation on that issue. But I think that due to that some kind of the indictment or something like that, all the regular cooperation between that two corporations had to be suspended. So I think that maybe it's I don't want to say that whose side will take the responsibility. I think that's not good for the two parts to cooperate.
Let's get back to the cooperation issue in just a minute. I want to expand just a little bit if we can, because you brought it up just now, Professor Tsuchiya. Obviously, the U.S. has been taking a high moral ground internationally in terms of its cybersecurity relations and pointing out how others have been attacking both the U.S. and others. And then along comes Eric Snowden. And those revelations of the U.S. national security apparatus also involved in just that sort of espionage and some very embarrassing revelations. How was that viewed in China?
That's all about the cyber espionage.
Both. Yeah.
I think that it's some kind of view inside China that it's difficult to distinguish some illegal espionage or legal espionage. It's some kind of that some China scholar or even official to propose that it is the gangster, maybe gangster logic. If you can to steal or to monitor all the fundamental infrastructure or the fiber of the other country. But you can still, at the same time, you prohibit the country to steal some kind of the economy information. That thing maybe from the Chinese side that they said that most important or most vital to the national security is the military or the political information, not economy information. So I think that is it's hard to accept for the Chinese people to look at the U.S. say that they can gather all kinds of the political or military information that does not do harm to other countries. That is not acceptable.
What is the situation in Japan in particular with regard to that? Because obviously the U.S. and the Japanese have a very close partnership relation, but obviously at times they don't see eye to eye.
So I think it was 2001, so Cybercrime Convention, so it's a Budapest Convention, was created mostly by European countries. But we ratified the convention 2 years ago, I believe. So Japan is the first country to ratify that convention. So China or other Asian countries or Russia are not ratifying the convention. So it's quite difficult for us to make, for example, law enforcement cooperation with China or other non-member countries. So, and China is not supporting Tallinn manual, I believe, as far as I know. So China is not involved in the drafting of the Tallinn manual, so that's why you don't like the manual. But this is a kind of standard, de facto standard for international discussion. And UN, United Nations Group of Governmental Experts, GGE, is not discussing, so China is involved much. But how we can set up an international norm or confidence building measures is a quite important step for us. So we want to, so US and Japan and European countries, Australia, try to include China, Russia in the process. But we have serious gap between our points of discussion.
Let's explore that a little bit, because that was part of the description of this session actually, is that one of the ways that you get over some of these tensions and begin to help commercial companies, all the people who have established the networks throughout the world, whose networks are being compromised by this kind of activity and whose livelihoods are actually threatened by this sort of activity that borders on war at times and could actually come to that at some point. To avoid that, hopefully, you need some sort of mechanism in place that can bring solution to these perspectives and to the differences in how each country views what is going on. One of the, you just mentioned it, confidence building measures, obviously coming out of the Cold War, in that situation. Can you explain, first of all, this is a growing international trend. There's a lot of organizations that are working on this, the Atlantic Council and folks there. We know people here at the Pacific Command in Hawaii that are working on this, trying to say, okay, look, it doesn't help to have this tense situation. This is not the way to proceed forward. We have to find ways where we can begin to understand each other a little bit better. So can you explain, first of all, what are confidence building measures, and then we'll see how they apply to this situation.
Yeah, it used to be a Cold War era measures, and for counting missiles, nuclear missiles or nuclear warhead or ships or jet fighters, something like that. So if you have a spy satellite, it was easier. So it was easier for Soviet Union and the United States. So they are watching each other. But in cyberspace, it's more difficult because we cannot count computer viruses or cyber weapons or something like that. So I was very skeptical, what can we do for confidence building measures in cyberspace? But UNGGE is discussing CBM, and they are listing a lot of measures could be possible. For example, publishing cybersecurity strategy, or exchanging higher officials, or doing joint exercises, something. But it's not happening, I believe, between China and the United States. So they are discussing cyber issues, but state-to-state level working group is canceled after FBI's charging of the 5 military officers in China. So we are in a very difficult situation, but I want to ask you, if possible, so Chinese government publish cybersecurity strategy quite soon. So I know that Chinese government published information society white paper or something in 2010. But after that, we still don't know what's happening inside China. So what's your idea? So what's your intention? So we still don't know. So we published our cybersecurity strategies 2 times. We passed a national law. So
this is a complaint internationally.
Sorry.
Don't mean to
Also complaint.
dump on our good friend here. Is that the reciprocity issue is very important to build trust in the first place. So what is the position of China on that?
Yeah, you say that I agreed that different countries have the different perspective of the internet or cyberspace, but the differences is not horrible. I think that the horrible or the real source of the confrontation is the distrust that you say, as you mentioned. So I think that the CBM may be the first step to persuade other country or to cooperation. I think, first of all, as Chia said, we should to exchange the views or some document, official document about that. And as a scholar, I have to know that almost in the situation or the occasion they to consult situation, consider. I also propose that the Chinese had to make a strategy on that. But even without that, I think I have found some official document to speak to outside that how China to view some strategy from inside the cybersecurity and how the Chinese to see the relationship between the security and the development. I have found I can provide you some kind of this paper. I think that another CBMs besides the exchange the documents, I think is another kind of to control the risk or to manage the major evidence in the cyberspace. And another kind of we can to establish some kind of the contact point to exchange some information regularly. I think that is important.
That would be a good first step, yeah. We look forward to continuing this kind of discussion. Professor Suchia is going to chair a session this afternoon on cybersecurity and relations in Asia in particular, in East Asia, so we invite you to that. Thank you for your kind attention, everyone. Aloha and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much.